and I'm not accusing, I'm genuinely asking, are you sure you're not confusing the amount of time the man spends with you with his monogamy? Because they're different things. Because what happens a lot of the time, if a man's out here chasing chicks, he's barely home. But imagine you had a man who was home 7 nights a week. He was always home. I'm talking about like an hour, like during his work lunch, you don't even notice. Then would you even give a shit about monogamy if you had all of his time effectively? Would you really care?
I still would care because I feel like that's still just an hour a day, and it's not really quality time. I feel I really have been in so many different situations. Again, the trainer in Austin to the NBA player baby daddy. Like I have seen all of that stuff. And it's just my personal experience and perspective to where I want someone that sees the value in the Grand Canyon. I want somebody who
I understand. Okay. Like, so that's a good point. And so I'll just ask the first question. I'm gonna ask the second question. The realization you've come to is an interesting one. It is something that happens, especially to females as they mature. Don't you think it's strange, or why do you think that 0 women on Earth choose those kind of men who they perhaps have slightly lower status, but are more likely to be loyal to them and be monogamous, etc. in the modern world? Because like I said, the world's changed. Why do you think 0 women choose them when they're at the peak of their choices? So when a woman is 19 and she can go anywhere she wants, every man wants her, she can go on any yacht in Miami, she can get flown out to Dubai, when she has all the choices in the world, why is she completely uninterested in those kind of men? And then when she gets to a certain age of maturity and there's a whole new generation of girls who have all the choices, then they sit there and go, you know what? I deserve monogamy and and they all of a sudden want to grow up and mature. Why does no woman decide that when she actually is at her most valuable?
I feel like like I said, I don't like to speak for all women. I just speak for myself. But I know for me that I was looking for a man for a lifestyle, something that I was not able to do individually by myself. So that's why it's like, well, yeah, I want to be able to do this, do that. I want to go for the football player that was just on GQ. And in reality, now I realize, well, okay, there's a lot that comes with that. I can make my own money. I don't necessarily need that type of guy for the happiness that I'm looking for. Again, seeing value in the Grand Canyon is a lot different than like, okay, here's money for this, here's allowance for that.
And
here's an hour of my time.
As you asking why a man that is 20, 21, 23 is not a top G like a 30, 40-year-old man.
No, the point,
your age actually dictates your sort of maturity to a large extent.
Well, I'm arguing the point. The point I'm trying to make is that what I actually think happens, especially in the modern world, because the modern world's all fucked up and nothing's the way it's supposed to be, the traditional life path of a female is she's 17, she's 18, she's 19, and her value is massively inflated. And I don't blame her. Of course it's massively inflated. Imagine being 19 years old, have achieved exactly fucking 0 in your life, knowing nothing. You put makeup on, and sports stars, billionaires, actors, the most important famous people on the planet, the richest men on the planet are begging for your attention. The ego you're going to develop, let's all be honest, right? The ego you're going to develop is going to be monu-fucking-mental. I'm special, I'm so gorgeous, all this bullshit, right? And then what happens as they grow older, as new generations come along, because the truth is most women are at their peak attraction, let's say in their early 20s. As they grow older, what women become is far more fearful of competition. This is why you'll see a woman who's a bit older go, oh, I really want monogamy. What she's scared of is her dude getting a 21-year-old. That's what she's fucking scared of. She may not know it. She may not say it. But basically, that's what the truth is, because she knows a 21-year-old is going to be more desirable, higher status, more fertile. That's what she's scared of.
Cheating is bad when you're 30 or 27.
So no, but it's not about that. I'm telling you the shift in the female mentality, because when a female is 20, she doesn't give a fuck about any of this. She doesn't want to find the nice man. Now she's trying to, like you're saying, chasing a lifestyle, chasing Mr. Promiscuous, chasing Mr. Famous. Doesn't give a shit until she starts getting scared. Oh, shit. Oh, my age begins with 3 now. And then they change, their mentality changes. It's a fear element. That's the reality. And it's a biological fear element. I'll give you an example of it. You know what's amazing about humans? We are still very primal. When men like these two and me, when we walk through the mall, people just move. It's like you can sense when the big animals turn up, right? It's something amazing about humans. If you have a very attractive 45-year-old woman, she's gorgeous, but a gorgeous 19-year-old walks in, look at that 45-year-old woman's face. She's furious. She fucking hates her. She just doesn't like her for no reason. Yeah. Because women understand, unfortunately, but your age is a massive indicator in your value. In an inverse way to men, men are more valuable as we get older. Every woman knows that. Every woman will sit here and go, yeah, I want a man who's older than me. Of course. But if I say it the other way around, I'm misogynistic. It's just the reality of the world. So then we have to go into the other point. The point is this. When you were at your peak value, you had 0 interest in monogamy. But then you find a man who's 35 at his peak value. He's finally struggled and worked because when he was 19, no girl spoke to him. When he was 23, he was broke. When he was 24, he had no life experience. When he was 25, he couldn't fuck. When he was 20, whatever. He finally gets to the point where he's now at his peak value. Him at 35 is you when you were 19. And then you're sitting there saying to him, no, you should be monogamous. It's like, well, you fucking weren't. You did whatever you wanted in your peak. Now I'm finally got there. And I had to work for my shit. God gave you. God and L'Oreal gave you. I had to fucking struggle. I had to go through hell to get on this yacht. You got on the yacht with an Instagram DM. I had to buy it. And now you're telling me I need to fucking settle down and behave and grow up? Fuck you.
Because
it's bullshit.
You're assuming that the journey is a man that starts with nothing to something, because there's a lot of men that
is
have
exactly the journey of every man on earth. We are born without value.
Do you think so there's specificity in that?
Can I just
because
ask
that's not how it should be for everybody, and that's not how it is for everybody, and not for every woman either as well, may I just say.
Can I ask Brittany something, please? Then you've learned in the past, and now you want to find someone to settle down. With hindsight now, would you have reversed it and started young, looking for someone to settle down with, looking for those values that now you know? I'm talking that with hindsight.
Okay, well, I actually, from 18 to 22, I was in a relationship. I've always actually been a lover girl, despite what I put out online for,
I've never
views.
seen you online.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, that's even better. I have always wanted one person, and I feel like I was so delusional in thinking that, oh, I'm like you said, like I have value, I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm at my peak. Like, why wouldn't you want to be with me? So going into these relationships, or just just people, my goal was always to get commitment. Like, I'm giving you my time, I'm pouring into you because I want commitment. And the reality is I'd never really understood my value. So I was going through guys, giving up sex, doing this, and it didn't make sense. So I believe in, I stand on everything I do. Like, I don't do apology tours. It is what it is. And I think that's where I feel like when they talk about women being delusional and all these other things, it is true. Because what you have to understand is that there are repercussions to your decisions, which is fine. So then you're talking about, okay, well, I want this type of guy, I want this, that, and that. You're talking about maybe monogamy. That's 3 to 5% of animals are monogamous. I think that's what it is, right? So your window is really, really small for what you're looking for. And even to go on to the point you said where you were talking about it's like a subconscious fear, I think it's like, for me, I feel like if it was more of a fear, I would have just stayed in my situation. Like, it wouldn't have made sense. Like, I mean, that was my first kid. I thought I waited and did it right. I left because I believe it. There's something else on my heart when it comes to love, and I'm just going to have to trust that. And if that means being alone, having a dog, I have to take that chance, because the Bentley, the ring, the house, and still getting, again, deceived, right? Disrespected, because deceit is disrespect, right? So I cannot settle for that. I can't suck a dick and shut up. And that is where a lot of people don't like my views and what I represent, because it is something new. I don't know how it's going to fucking end. I don't know what's going to happen.
What would you tell your 17, if you had to, what would you tell your 17-year-old self, knowing what you know now? Looking back and you had to meet yourself at 17, what would you tell what would you tell yourself? Like, lock it down and wait for the right man, don't have sex. What would you tell your 17-year-old self?
That the answers aren't outside of you, because I feel like I'd always look for men to answer all of my questions that I've ever had. I thought when I had a man, it would complete me. And I feel like too, especially with my dad not being in my life, you look for somebody to guide me. So that's where, for me, I put too much value in someone else having the answers for me. So that's why I'm really big on accountability. So I would just tell myself, to be patient, to take your time, because I was always quick. Oh, let's try to get in a relationship. We weren't even compatible. There's a lot of just not compatible factors. So I feel like for me, it would be to slow down and to really get to know people, instead of just blindly banking on potential that most likely will never be tapped into, or selling myself short because there's a fear of, well, I don't know, this could be the best that I could get. I might as well just shut up and suck a dick.
And that's what I meant about women nowadays, because exactly what you'd be telling your 17-year-old self is what happened back in the day. So when I'm repeating these things, I'm going, oh, you're old-fashioned. But it seems like women do what they like, and then they hit a certain age and say, oh, well, I've got to settle. But it's not settling. You're just getting whatever you can. Or whatever you deserve.
You know what?
Because
Auntie,
if you think back now, you'd be telling people now, rather than say that Auntie's old-fashioned or Auntie don't know what she's talking about, look what she'd be telling her 17-year-old self, which ain't nothing that I ain't already said.
Yeah,
because
that's fine.
really and truly, let me finish. Because what I've always said, and you can check, I'm an older version of you. So where you've been, I've already been on up come back. So that's why I asked you, what would you tell your 17-year-old self? Because me telling you is, I'm telling my 30-year-old self. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So it's not that I'm old-fashioned. It's just that women hit a certain age and then realize, oh, my God, it wasn't that old-fashioned. You know, it works because it does. But there's no point in waiting till you're a certain age to start thinking about it. You know, even if you're like, you hold your own accountability. So it's like if you meet somebody and they were like 17, 18 and you saw them acting a certain way, they asked you for advice, you wouldn't say, do as I do. You say, listen, this is what happened to me. And this is what I thought. And what I recommend you do is blah, blah, blah. Am I right or am I wrong? If they ask you for your advice.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Like, I totally agree with that. I think that no matter what you decide to do, you have to accept whatever repercussions come behind that. So any advice that I give to anybody is do what you want, but just know there are repercussions, good, bad, or indifferent, that are going to come behind it. So, I mean, and I think that's just where I'm at. I don't even think it's like an age thing. I think it's like, in reality, I have a son, and you really start asking yourself questions. And again, I hate that it took having a child to really look into my life and call myself out on my bullshit.
So if you got pregnant earlier, if you got pregnant at 18, 19, would it?
I was always on birth control.
Okay.
I was on birth control for a decade. I got off birth control because the person I was with wanted to have a baby.
Okay.
So again, I thought I did it right. Clearly not, because I wasn't married, but it still didn't work out because it just wasn't my guy. So that's where I just think, like, even if I still would have taken it slow, there just were a lot of people that just were genuinely not my person, and that's okay.
I would just
speaking of marriage,